hands. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Yeah, baby, I got accepted.
I got
Yes. Yes. Yeah, baby. No more future runs for me. Did you go to UF?
What? No, I didn't apply to the university. Look, see, you couldn't come on here when I graduated high school.
We couldn't apply to UF.
No.
You didn't go here. And we had what's the man's name? I can't recall his name. He come here and try to go to school.
Which one?
The law school.
Oh,
Virgil Hawkins.
Yeah. That was the first student integration of the University of Florida.
yeah.
And I didn't never think I'd be able to take a class at the University of Florida, and finally I did. For a long time, we couldn't go.
No.
And even for a long time, a few people took a few classes, and that was it for several years. You could go out and take a few classes, but you couldn't live on campus. You could live in those university housing for a long time.
Why do you think you could never go to the university?
Well, because it was all white. And I happened to go to the University of Florida. It was when Santa Fe first opened and I wanted to be a nurse. But I got married and didn't go to nursing school because if you wanted to go to school here, you had to try to go to Florida Memorial or you go to Florida A&M or to Jacksonville.
That's right.
So there was no college for black people to go to.
No.
I was born here in Gainesville. I'm Joel Buchanan. I'm the third of 4 children. I attended Lincoln High School, then I left Lincoln High School when the NAACP, locally under the leadership of Reverend Thomas A. Wright, who was president of the main branch of the NAACP, with Charles Chestnut III, who was president of the youth branch, and I was a member of the youth branch. And in 1964, the NAACP wanted to integrate the public school system, and they needed some children to test to see if we were able to go to school. And out of the children he asked, I was one that said I would ask my parents to use my name for the suit that was filed against the school board. And after taking a series of tests, I think there were 8 of us. 3 students were selected, 2 girls and 1 boy. I was the boy. And we integrated Gainesville High School in 1964. I graduated Gainesville High School on time and got a scholarship to the new community college, Santa Fe Community College. I went there for 1 year and came to the University of Florida and got a degree in English and math. Taught in the public school system for, I forget how many years. Came back and got an advanced degree in education. Went back and had more than 20 years in the public school system and community college. And now, here I am at the University of Florida.
It was a shocking experience, and no one could tell us what it was like because it had not been done in this city or county or state prior. We were the first 3, and I pretty much knew it was going to be different because I was going from an all-black school to a prominently white one, and I was going to be the one to integrate. I didn't realize there was such a resistance among the white community for an African American to come there until it had happened. I saw a level of hate that I've never seen before because my mother worked for a prominent white family, the Murphys, and there would be times where we would go to the home for activities. And I was here on campus where there was exposure for being a student at Gainesville High School. And there were 3 of us. The girl ahead of me was LaVon Wright, and she was in the 12th grade. And I was in the 11th grade, and Sandra Williams was in the 10th grade. We, the 3 students, along with the assistant principal of Lincoln High School, where I attended previously, met with the chief of police downtown before we went to school to discuss the safety of the 3 of us. They discussed that we could be assassinated. They talked about it as if it was a possibility. We went to school in an unmarked police car, went to our designated classes, and left after school. We were not encouraged to participate in any activities or go to any activities after school because they were concerned with the safety of the 3 of us. The 3 of us surprised the community because it was perceived that we weren't prepared, but we were prepared. LaVon graduated on time, and I think she was in the top 5% of her class. I graduated on time, and I was in the top 10% of my class, and Sandra did as well. So We all graduated on time, and it was a challenging experience, but I'm glad we had the experience. I don't know if it was hard. I just remember there was certain places you couldn't go, and I came up in a family, you couldn't go anywhere unless you went with someone else. And I remember if we had to do major shopping, we did that in Jacksonville. And I remember there were certain stores I couldn't go in. And a pleasant memory I have is of a restaurant on the corner of 13th called Captain Louis Seafood. And I remember we would go to the back door of the restaurant and stand outside to order the meal. And the cook would come and he would take your order and he would wait until he had time to cook it and bring it to you. And I told myself that eventually I would be able to go in that restaurant because the only difference between those that were inside and outside was skin color. And I knew how to behave and I had good table manners, so I was determined to go in there. And I finally had a chance to visit Captain Louis when they allowed students to go in. The place that I was arrested from was across the street from Captain Louis, a restaurant on the corner of 13th where Krispy Kreme sits today, called Humpty Dumpty Restaurant. 6 of us went in for lunch. It was a drive-in, and a group of blacks drove in onto the parking lot, and the manager, or whoever, went outside. And when they went outside to deal with the people in the car, the 6 of us walked in the restaurant, and we took a seat, and they locked the door. We were told they weren't going to serve us. Then they took us to jail. And when we went to court, all I remember telling the judge is that all we did was sit down and ask for lunch. We were prepared to pay. We were not served. We were put on probation. So my parents and my family accepted what was happening and that I was the only one in my family willing to make a difference. And I'm glad I made a difference. And the thing is, when I was demonstrating the years at Gainesville High School and when I came to the University of Florida, they supported those things I was in, and they made sure I had the necessary tools I needed in order to be successful. And they supported what I was doing. When I had to go to court, the person that went with me was my mother. And when I had to be put on probation and go to the courthouse to visit the judge, I think it was weekly or bi-weekly, she supported it, but it was the first and the last time. My mother was very much into what I was doing. She supported what I was doing. My father did not want me to do it because he feared for my life, but once I made the decision I was going to do it, and my mother supported me, pretty much gave me the support as well.
Was being integrated into the high school and not being able to shop in some stores, is that your first memory of segregation?
Yes and no. I do remember that everybody in my neighborhood where I lived was black, and I do remember there was a certain part of town you couldn't go in. And I remember when things were beginning to change and we started picketing, I was the only one in my family willing to participate. I had done a science project, and I had to be in the 8th or 9th grade. And I'd gotten little white mice. And I did a project on the essentials of vitamins to the body. And I showed what vitamins A, E, and C would do to the body and lack thereof. I won the competition. I went to regionals, and I won that. I went to states, and state was not integrated. My project was entered into the competition, and it had won. And the day when students are there to say what they had done and why I wanted to go to my project, but I was told I couldn't go. And I questioned why, and they said it wasn't my project, but it was my project. They said it looked like a project that a white student would have done, and I did not understand that. I had done a quality project, and I could not be seated next to my project. And I won the award, but it was given to me later. I was determined that if nothing else, I was going to see that that was never going to happen to another student again. That was the only time I can remember having to do with skin color and what I could and could not do.
At the end of my second year, just before graduation, the President Jackson, called several of us into his office and said that he had a request from the University of Florida for students that he felt would excel at the University of Florida. He said, "Miss Moore, I'm recommending you for the College of Nursing. You still want to go to nursing school?" And I said yes. So this door opened, and the College of Nursing at the University of Florida invited me to come over for an interview. I had my interview with the College of Nursing Dean Smith, and Nichols was the assistant dean at the time, and I was accepted. I was the first Black nursing student to be extended that invitation. As it turns out, there were 5 of us that entered from Hampton that September, and so it felt like I had a support system. Bertha and I roomed together off of 3rd Avenue with a gentleman named Alex Tomlin. That's where we were sent. They wouldn't give us housing on campus. Now, that doesn't mean that the others didn't have housing on campus, because when those first students entered the university, 2 of the students did get housing. But anyway, Bertha knew this gentleman. He had an extra room and an area on the back of his home, which was very nice, had just remodeled. And so we went to live with him. I was okay with that because there were 2 of us, and he worked at the hospital. He was an orderly. And at the end of the first trimester, the other 4 were out of here. Well, either some were on probation and some just didn't make it. You see, the numbers started dwindling before we even got started. Here I was. And there was another young lady who came from Gibbs Junior College, Betty Keat. And she and I roomed together for a short while during the 2nd trimester, and I think she left in the middle of the trimester. She was in nursing too. So, anyway, yes, this was my first experience with an integrated situation. Now you have to realize that I came in 1965. The first students to enter the university as undergraduates was 1962, so there wasn't but a handful of us there. I didn't tell people that I graduated from the University of Florida because I think you need to understand. First of all, a lot of Black people might not have even known about the University of Florida. They thought it was a far-fetched idea. It was one of those things that the memories of the University of Florida. My experience here was very traumatic at times. And you see, when I went to the university, when I spent time on Florida A&M's campus, I felt so much pride just being able to visit my sisters in college, or when my high school drama club was presenting the play. It just felt like home. It just felt like a place where I belong. When I was at the University of Florida, I did not have a feeling of belonging. And so that's why you don't just dredge up stuff and talk about stuff you don't feel good about. And I have been asked to leave the University of Florida College of Nursing.
First of all, she had the experience of fainting in one of her classes, and when she fainted, she was sent to the infirmary. Now, the infirmary then sent her down the hill to a neurologist to check it out and see if she had seizures. And they ended up with a diagnosis saying that she had little seizures, or petit mal seizures. So they put her on Dexedrine, and this was her 2nd year here, her 3rd trimester, and she was taking med-surg. So they put her on Dexedrine in the morning, which is an upper, and phenobarbital, which is a sedative for the brain at night. So she was a mess. She couldn't stay awake, and she was all jittery, and this was very trying for her. And there was no one who would advocate for her, no one who she could counsel with or talk to, because she didn't have an advisor. Now, the white students may have had an advisor, but she didn't have an advisor.
So one day, one of the graduate nursing advisors had an opportunity to fill in for one of the undergraduate instructors, and so she saw her state. She was able to take one look at her and see that something was not right. And so she asked her to stay afterwards, and she did. And so the med-surg instructor asked her what was going on, because she was the talk around in the College of Nursing. She knew that. She had no doubt about it. She told her, "Don't take any more of that medication. What the hell are they trying to do to you?" She said, "I will take care of this." Those were exactly her words. She said, "I will take care of this."
Now, shortly after that, she was called in by the dean, Dean Smith, and she invited her, or she gave her an opportunity to withdraw, and invited her to go over to FAMU. Well, what you have to understand is that at the time, FAMU was not accredited. They had lost their nursing accreditation. She couched it this way: "I feel like you would do better in an environment where they're more like you."
Not one time did they offer her any tutoring. Not one time did they say,
"Evelyn, we're going to assign you to Miss Doe, and Miss Doe is going to be there for you. If you have any questions or concerns, you can go and ask her."
not one time. But they did invite her to go somewhere else to finish her education.
Now, I didn't invite myself to the University of Florida. I was extended an invitation. Now, the same people who extended me an invitation also extended me an invitation to leave. I talked to my mother about it when I was home on break, and she said,
Marie, did you fail?
I said, no, ma'am. And my dad said,
Well, you know, she keeps crying and she did get sick.
She didn't fail. What did you go there for?
I went to get a nursing education.
Well, what's back here for you?
Nothing, Mama.
Well, you can't come home because there's nothing here for you. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to pray for you. Your daddy and I are going to plant all this acres here in corn, and we're going to get some additional money. We're going to just ask God to just bless you. And you keep going to church. And you keep praying, and you keep doing your best. That's all we can offer to you. But you can't come home. Didn't you go down there to get an education?
Another experience I had, and this is just something that stuck out in my mind. It wasn't something that I wanted to share. Yes, when I applied for a job, I put in the University of Florida, College of Nursing, and that was my degree. But I would just sit quietly. Most didn't even know I had a degree. It wasn't something that I wanted to announce. We had no graduation ceremony, and we didn't even have a pinning ceremony this summer when I graduated. And I've been back to talk to two of the instructors that were there at the time. One a graduate instructor and one a skills instructor. But I didn't have her for my skills, I had somebody else. And in celebrating the 50th anniversary of the College of Nursing, she could not find anything about that year. Couldn't find the pictures. And I said to myself, you know what? This might have something to do with me. It just might have something to do with me. I'm not so naive to think that it didn't have something to do with me. Why could she find everything else about that year, but she couldn't find anything about me? And when I graduated and I took the nursing boards, you know what section of the nursing boards I failed? Med-surg. So that tells you I wasn't dumb, I wasn't stupid. But a period of time out of my life was blocked out by phenobarbital and dexedrine. I worked psych the first year I got out of school. I had a really good experience in psych because of my instructor, and also, I think it's my passion. I have a passion for people who are challenged in that way. And so she told me,
Evelyn, you are not stupid. You are not dumb. How many others could have made it feel like you have done and still be holding up your head? So I'm going to help you. I'm going to counsel with you, and you are going to study. I'm just going to encourage you, and when you go to take that section of the boards again, you are going to pass.
sure enough, I did. I only failed by 2 points the first time. So that tells you that had I not had that experience there, I would have passed all of my boards. But let me tell you what happened after I didn't pass my boards. I was called in again. I'm already out of school by now, by the dean and the assistant dean to lambaste me and to tell me what an embarrassment I was to the College of Nursing. I was working at Shands. Remember, I'm working the psych unit at Shands. I said, well, lo and behold, are y'all not satisfied they didn't get me out? And now you want to say that I'm an embarrassment again? They did not offer any assistance for me taking the boards the first time. No, that was not their aim. That was not their aim. That was just some of the experiences that I had.
Before total integration came about in schools, communities raised their own children, and in a lot of cases, we raised our own food, and there wasn't a need for actually going to some of the white establishments for things. You only went if there were necessities and things you really, really needed, like groceries, stuff like that. As far as clothing and stuff like that, my grandmother made all our clothes, so as far as clothing stores and stuff like that, we never had to go to the stores for our clothes. She made trousers, shirts, coats.
So did you ever feel like you were missing out on anything?
No, not really. That's why before integration came about, it did not bother me. Well, some things did bother me. Books. Not being able to have new books, knowing that books had to be new at one time. The hand-me books that had messages to them. in the books that was directed to us. One thing I will never forget, we used to go to the University of Florida to sell Cokes and Pepsi Colas, and this particular game, the Gators lost to Miami 3-0. The students were upset. I was caught with a tray of sodas, so I went outside the gate to sell my sodas and get my little profit, $2.40 back. I reached for a soda. Some students surrounded me and started kicking and spitting on me and calling me all sorts of names. That's why I'm not a Gator today. I ran out of fear. I ran from all the way in front of the entrance of the stadium to Fifth Avenue. As a matter of fact, I was a senior that year. I was working in order to be able to afford my class ring, my graduation invitations, my cap and gown, stuff like that. That was an experience.
My grandfather, if it was raining, he would meet us out in the wagon for us to have a coat to go over us, where we wouldn't get sick. Yes, and we had to walk. We'd walk straight down the railroad until one girl, and I can't remember her name, was killed down there. Somebody killed her.
What happened?
Had stopped at a store to get her sisters some washing powder to wash with, because they lived out in the country, near our church, and would go out there in their Christmas time to practice.
I can't wait for y'all today! Because I need to go take care of my sister. I need some washing powder, so I'm going on.
But nobody figured nothing would happen, so we thought she'd gone on, because I wasn't going, because Mama said I had something else to do.
You'll just have to miss.
But another lady, she was behind her. Now she said she's seen Pearline. Her name was Pearline. You know the railroad? It's got a curve in it. And after she turned the curve, she didn't see her. Oh, and after she turned the curve and got around the curve, she looked down the road and said she didn't see her.
Well, Miss Polly, why didn't you tell somebody?
I thought that she went up. There was a guy that lived up there in the Gulf Lane. I thought that she was up there maybe talking to Fred or something.
That doesn't make sense. And you missing the girl ahead of you and then telling her sister and them?
We always walk on. That every one of us would walk on one side of the railroad. We never walked on that other side when we went to London. But had they walked on the other side, they would have found this girl's books, laying where she laid them, and they going down the hill slantways. But they didn't find that until the next day. The man that take care of the pool, the waterworks, he said he heard a gun shoot twice, about 2 o'clock in the morning. So police finally, when someone of them walked on the other side, they found the books. And they went seeing where the tracks went down and said it was 2 men beside her, seeing her track and the 2 men track. And they found where they smoked the pipes and rolled the cigarettes and shot her. Done what they wanted to do to her and shot her.
Because she was by herself.
I remember back in the day when I was a little boy, I made friends with the black man who ran the steamroller for the city of Gainesville. Now, a steamroller was this enormous smoke duster thing with a huge flat wheel on the front end of it and 2 big ones in the back. And this guy could manipulate that thing. You see, the 2 wheels in the back, they were in direct line with the one in the front, so it all rolled over the same space. And you could roll and flatten the gray slab with that thing. Now, this man could operate it so carefully, so precisely that you could put a dime down in the street, and he would drive right along by it and not displace it with this huge, powerful thing. And that was the steamroller man, John. John was his name. I hesitate to put on record what everyone else called him, but why not? It's what everyone else called him.
He was called Nigger John.
Now, he somehow managed to live with that when he was in the presence of other whites, I suppose. He could live with it. Now, how he was in his free time, I don't know, because I didn't know him that way. Well, I just knew him as his friend who he'd come by after he parked that thing in the city lot, and he happened to walk back on Arredonda Street because, Arredonda was the main highway, back and forth footpathway, car, bicycle, you name it, at that time of the town. Now, the Arredonda Street, or 5th Street pathway, was between the Seminary neighborhood, which was north of town, And the other one, which was south of town, which was called Porter's Quarters. Now, Porter's Quarters was a wonderful black neighborhood full of people that I didn't know. Well, I knew people from the seminary neighborhood because I was on this side of University. University Avenue acted as kind of a dividing line between the north and south here. Kind of a microcosm of the whole north-south issue, if you ask me, or any of my playmates at the time. Here's the reason I wanted to bring up John, because it was absolutely important in my life. Now, one day, I heard an ambulance siren wailing away. When I could tell it was coming from the Oscar Thomas Funeral Home up on Main Street, but it wasn't going up Main Street like it usually did. It was getting closer. So it was coming west, right along Church Street, and then it stopped. Right at the corner of Arredondo Street and Church Street, just stopped in the middle of the road. And so I ran out to get a better look, and when I got there was John, lying in the middle of the sidewalk in a pool of his own blood. He'd been sitting on this big curved fenceway, this big stone fenceway right at the corner of the Whitstock house. He'd been sitting there, and some drunk had failed to make the corner. So, John was lying here in his pool of blood. At the moment, I'm trying to recollect whether it was his left or his right. I think it was his left foot that had been severed and was just kind of swaying there by his Achilles cord. Now, I saw this when they picked him up and put him on the stretcher, but that happened sometime later because, and this was the pivotal thing, the Oscar Thomas ambulance refused to pick him up and put him on the ambulance because he was black and had to wait.
Yeah, we can't take him. You only have to wait for the White and Jones ambulance to get here.
And that's what I heard. And there's my friend lying there. Something flooded through me that had never flooded through me before, because when I saw that, and I saw it as just pure idol, I mean, it was awful. And all I could do was sit there, witness it. John, in his agony, I don't know if he could feel anything. He just kind of laid there with his hands clasped, praying. They didn't try to pick him up. They didn't try to make him comfortable. They didn't do anything. And that was so horrible that I wanted to beat on these people. That was not my nature. I was not brought up to raise my fists and pound. So mentally, I was pounded on him somehow. And then finally, the White and Jones ambulance showed up. And he was very tenderly picked up. But when they picked him up, his foot, which was still in the shoe, I remember, was just kind of swinging there by his Achilles tendon. That picture is so indelible. And the color of that blood right there in front of that house, I can't pass it without thinking about it. You know the funny thing? That stone he was sitting on, it's still pushed out of the way. Nobody pushed it back. I don't think anybody even noticed it except me. Now, whoever ran into him, they were so drunk. There was no malevolence there. It was just ignorance and stupidity and drunkenness, just wanton nonsense. But the acts of unkindness that day, they were not wanton. They were deliberate. They were of a mindset that I was saved from in that moment, and I never forgot it. Now, what my actions were after that were the actions of a little boy who was scared, confused, and whose memory of the whole thing would be eclipsed by other things, and who would revert to being the same little boy who from time to time pretended that he owned Sammy, and Sammy loved pretending that he was a slave. And then when Sammy wanted to be the master and I was a slave, we'd switch roles. We never whipped each other, but we always carried a stick. The master carried the stick. My entire understanding of what slavery was, that was it. But that was what I emerged from. And that right there, that was the moment where the emergence began. Now, if you can trace that in your own life, to where you have this colossal life change, then you're lucky.
Our next speaker will be Sam Haley, representing the Black Student Union at the University of Florida. Good afternoon, Nichols. Niggers, Niggas. Pronunciation varies a little bit, but basically you are the new niggers. It's very interesting, you know. I didn't realize one could achieve such a mental orgasm by calling somebody that. Nigger. Well, it's happened again. John Parker got zilched yesterday. I understand it almost happened right here at the glorious Mastigator. As I recall, he was once quoted as saying when he first came here that he would never coach black athletes. And I think that's why he's not coaching now. The American mentality says, of course, that we can run the football, we can't throw it, we can run it. I guess we haven't had enough physics in order to learn how to release the projectile at the correct angle and get it to the receiver. And we're viewed as sensual athletes, as mental idiots, as being somehow or other very loyal creatures. But I love my maid, as she likes us. Yeah, so you thought. I wish you could hear what your maid says about you behind your back. She was telling me, you know, my white woman sure is dumb. I swear she's dumb. And it's kind of funny. We have our own image of you and your sister, your parents, your representatives.
We don't think you're all that bright. You outnumber us, but we can overcome this deficiency. We merely recruit more niggers. And you've done a good job of it. Let your hair grow, wear funny clothes. You ought to see those rednecks looking at you going down University Avenue. If they could just get their hands on you, they might give some of our brothers a chance to get out of jail. Or maybe the cops will be so busy busting you, they might forget about us. Meanwhile, we get ready. We get ready because we have no choice. That great day is coming when black people are going to liberate black people. Now, in the process, if you don't like being niggas any longer by that time, we might be able to help liberate you. Need a little money for it, you know. A few pats on the back, recognition, but we'll help liberate you. Right now, we find some of you are our worst problem. You're stumbling all over yourselves trying to help us. We just got your parents pushed off our backs. Give us a break, okay? We know what to do if you just listen. We know how to achieve liberation if you just believe us. For instance, when the Black Panthers talked about guns, people rejected them. The thought of black students at Cornell with guns was just too much for the American mentality. Yet good and faithful rednecks have had guns on almost every college campus for as long as there have been guns on college campuses. This is nothing new. We merely want to protect ourselves. The police don't do it. Your representatives, your president certainly don't do it. So I guess the task falls on us. We will do it. Some people ask, well, what can we do? We are opting for change, drastic change. A change in the way America is run, a change in the way black people are treated. I don't just mean the violent, dramatic stuff that you read about occasionally. I think instead that what we need to get rid of is the subtle kind of intimidation that blacks, poor whites, and you good old niggas are subjected to. I mean, stuff like a friend of mine who's in the county jail right now, who came from work one night and was picked up by the police. I hear he was suspected of being a Black Panther. That was 6 months ago. He came up for trial about 3 weeks ago, a mistrial, and he's still in jail. He doesn't really know what it was he's supposed to have done, but he's in jail. Or like a poor kid who's had to share his food with roaches and rats all his life, who gets tired of seeing you driving your 442s and decides to lift your stereo tape deck, you know, in order to relieve you of the burden of wondering if it will be stolen. I find it very difficult to condemn someone in this position. I find it very difficult to condemn someone who's gone hungry most of his life, even in the presence of food stamps, who's lived in a house where you can look up and see the stars, where the only thing of value may be the television, his parents are worked to death, where there's misery and poverty. When he strikes back, when he lashes out against what's holding him down, I find it very difficult to condemn, in spite of the fact that he may break your windshield. Of course, I don't like to see anybody hurt, but anybody includes black people who are hurt all the time, and this is why we are opting for change. I don't like the kind of employment situation that we have on this campus, where non-academic personnel, black in particular, are automatically channeled because of educational deficiencies which they have nothing to do with, to the lowest jobs on campus. I have an uncle who died in April. He worked on this campus for 13 years. He started out as a janitor 1. He died as a janitor 1. Oh, I know how it feels to be in that position. I've been employed by one of your friend's parents. My wife has been employed by one of your friend's parents, and as a result of those experiences, we know what it is to be degraded and dehumanized, underpaid, overworked, insulted. We can no longer accept this. We cannot, as black people, put up with this anymore. At the same time, you, the glorious students of the University of Florida, are very much going about your daily business. Nothing very much has changed. You're almost all white, almost all fairly well off economically, almost all without very much concern for your fellow man. Almost all of you males are capable of going to Vietnam and killing a Viet Cong. Black people say, we won't go. Hell no! As a brother once said, no Vietnamese ever called me nigger. Now he's got the jump on you. We won't kill him. Instead, we won't allow our minds to harbor such a contradiction as killing in another country while we ourselves are not free. If there is killing, unfortunately, it will have to be in America. But we don't like the idea of killing. We like the idea of life, liberty, brotherhood. But first of all, we must achieve liberty. Freedom. In this country, freedom for blacks means freedom from whites. Freedom from you, from your parents, from those of you who want to save us, from those of you who don't give a damn, and from those of you who are just outright hostile to us. We are going to determine our own destiny. We will do it by any means necessary. Any means necessary. Black people must get educated. I talked with your glorious registrar yesterday. Oh, he's not very much willing to allow black students in. Regardless his reasons given, his actions, if followed, will keep this university almost all white. If you want something to do, that's something. Now that's something you could do fairly easily with fairly clean hands. You won't have the thought of blood on your hands. If we can get more black students into this university, distribute the knowledge, skill, and training of this society more equitably, there's room for black people here so we can go back into our communities well-trained. Yeah. America needs you to stand up, to refuse to be its niggers. Yeah. We stop being them. Will you?
What years did you attend the university?
I came in the fall of '69 and I graduated summer of '74. And needless to say, race relations weren't exactly inviting for black students. You know, my late grandfather, he grew up in Alachua. And he really didn't want me to come here because of the racism he experienced. You know, there used to be a sign at the old depot in Gainesville that read, "Nigger, if you can read, run. If you can't read, or run anyways." You know, Alachua was some real racist. And then when I was moving in, I had my roommate come in and, you know, being the friendly guy I am, I got off and I was like, "Hi, my name's Joe." And I held out my hand to shake his hand. And he looked at me, turned around, and I never saw that guy again. I think that year, up until the point in time he came, it was the largest class of black students at the university. You know, very quickly, we formed strong bonds. The Black Student Union was already in existence then, but it was very low-key. So me and several other guys, we got together and we did the constitution of the BSU. We more or less modeled it after the Black Panthers. So, you know, we had a chairman, a minister of information, a minister of defense, that sort of thing. And that was the same year that an incident happened that I will never forget. You know, the only year that I lived on campus was my first year. So, you know, I was in South Hall. I had the biggest room on the yard down on the ground floor. And, you know, there was only one black student per floor. And naturally, I made friends with the janitorial staff. So anyways, some guys over in North Hall, they decided to go in the bathroom and throw feces at each other. So this one black janitor that I made friends with, he was a pastor. He came up to me and he said, well, they expect us to clean it up. I said, you know what, Rev, you don't have to worry about that. I'll take care of it. So I got on the phone, and in about 20 minutes, I had 15 other guys in my room. We walked over to North Hall to check out the bathroom situation, and it was atrocious. No, that was the same year that Willie Jackson and Leonard George came in. They were the first 2 black football players at UF. So, you know, we put Jacob at one end of the hallway, and then we put Earl Wilcox at the other end. Earl was also a big guy. So we ran down, we knocked on all the doors, and we said, hey, y'all made this mess, and you're gonna clean it up.
Were they black students?
They were all white students.
Why do you think they did that?
I have no idea.
Were they reprimanded for doing that?
What happened is, after we made the ultimatum, they called the area director, and then UPD shows up. They called me down to talk to them, and I said, hey, those guys had a shit fight, and they need to clean it up. They looked at us like we were crazy. So, after that, we had a standoff for several hours. I said, we aren't going anywhere until this gets cleaned up. So the guys that had the shit fight eventually cleaned it up. So after that, about 8 of us would go around to the different dormitories on the weekends, and if the hallways and the bathrooms were really messy, we would knock on the doors and make whoever was there say, hey, y'all clean this up. And if it's not cleaned up by the time we get back in 2 hours, well, we're gonna see why it won't be cleaned up. It wasn't about the restrooms per se. It was that me and some of the other guys, we felt that they weren't paying the maids and the janitors enough money to be doing that extra work. So the black people that worked on campus were really glad to see us there. You know, I had several people come up to me saying, I don't know what you're doing, but we used to wouldn't get through till 3, 4 a.m. Now we get through at about 11 or midnight. And then there was this one lady in the cafeteria. She was a cashier, and I had a meal card, so I would pick out this and that. She said, you know, bro, you don't gotta do that. Just get whatever you want. So whatever I got, it always came out to 99 cents. So I guess that was their way of protesting.
What is it that's been lost?
Identity. The value of history. There's so many things like personal respect for each other, family, community. Oh, we just lost so much. Look, I realize that, look, time doesn't stand still. You don't want to be here tomorrow. You got to progress in order to move forward, but we just lost the very core and fiber of those things that made us strong. And I think we lost a lot of that when we began to integrate the schools. For instance, what happened when we integrated the schools here in Alachua County? They closed Lincoln immediately. My younger brother Sherwin and hundreds of others were transported over to Gainesville High School to finish out the school year. Couldn't even wait for the school year to finish even. So what did that do to this community? Lincoln was the very hub of the black community. Everything happened virtually at Lincoln. School was accessible, the pride was here. This is where things happen. So that sense of community was lost. And you got to understand, Gainesville was not nearly as large as it is now. So when you start to talk about the things that occurred after integration, we begin to lose our identity. And while we are a melting pot and diversity is extremely important to me, we lost the very identity that brought us to this point. And see, what worries me about our history is that if it's not valued, we could very easily lose the ground that we've gained.
Having grown up in Florida in the 50s and the 60s, so I was telling the fellow before the elections, it will never happen. It just won't happen. So when it did happen, I was fully emotional about it. And that's when I said to my children, we're going to Washington.
Well, all those people are going to be there.
I didn't care how much people were going to be there. Your daddy's going to be there, and I want you there because you don't know how far black folks have come in this country. So the next night when we got home, my daughter called me on the phone. She lives in Orlando.
Why were you so emotional?
I don't expect you to understand.
What was all the hoopla about?
You were there. You saw it. You saw history in the making in this country. There'll never be another first.
Well, you know, he was the most qualified.
Everybody knew that, but not everybody voted for him. I mean, most people knew he was the more qualified. Can you just imagine Sarah Palin as vice president of these United States and McCain gets ill? I mean, I'd probably have to leave the country. But anyways, back to you, Evelyn. You have history. As I walk and drive around campus now, I'm just elated at the progress that's been made. When I first graduated, the only thing I wanted to do was get away from a bad experience. But as I matured and got older and realized the value of the education I got, there's no question in my mind that my degrees from the University of Florida have aided me throughout my career. And that's the first question they asked me.
Oh, where did you go to school?
University of Florida Law School.
Oh, well, you're probably all right.
It was that kind of response to it. So I called upon fellow classmates when I was seeking judicial appointments, and they wrote letters and made calls on my behalf. So there's no question in my mind that the friendships I established, at least in law school, have helped me throughout my career. You know, I've seen the judicial system change. I see young black lawyers now coming out and going to work for big law firms. When I graduated, there was no white firms hiring black lawyers. I mean, you could go to work for legal services or a public defender's office or legal aid or something. But now, these youngsters coming out, oh, the sky's the limit. And if they've got the grades and the determination, well, the sky is the limit.